man's got to know his limitations.
All right, I got a really, really good podcast for you. I worked my tail off on this. This was probably one of the hardest podcasts I ever had to do because it really tested the weak areas of what I know. And football is so complicated. It's the most complicated game in the history of mankind. There's so many levels, so many nuances. Even the pros, they're constantly in a state of learning going, I got to learn more. And so if they're doing it, we have to. And you're going to get to hear I was wrong. Some people might like that too. But Darius DeHady, he's commented many times on this podcast. He, number 20, you can see here for FIU. He got tryouts for the NFL. He's got a ESPN player page. This guy knows the game. And when Steve made his summation on a set of analytics and what Tua is doing, and I kind of replied after, he said some stuff. And you're going to learn a ton. It was such valuable information. I can't express how grateful I am for Darius to do this. And he coaches, and he had two sections. It was like the overview is what I'm going to talk about, the concepts and understanding. But then there was like detailed stuff. And in the detailed stuff, he even offered me a question, and I flunked it. And so it really is going to have me this offseason spending a lot more time learning. But it is so eye-opening, and I dare say shake maybe the foundation of what a lot of people think this offense is and what Tua is doing. Again, it's not to say Tua is the greatest or he's not the greatest or whatever, but it's just to get a clear evaluation to understand what's really going on. So when you see him do things or this offense do things, you will understand. Now, before I get into that, guys, the likes, subscribes, comments, and reviews, all that stuff keeps me in a biz. So please, if you're doing that, I got to say thank you. And if you haven't, just click the like button, click the subscribe button. It keeps me doing a gig and keeps my sponsors happy. I got a live tonight at 9 p.m. Me and the guys, we're going to be talking Miami Dolphins football and whatever the viewers want to talk about. But I'm also going to tell you what's going on with this channel and how it's going to play out. So that'll be it. Come check it out. So as we eval, at least for me, I go about with two initial precepts, two starting points. The first one is, as you'll find out today, I can be wrong. And I've got to start with, hey, maybe I'm wrong. And that's important because you can get easily locked into ideas. And they might end up being right, but if you're not evolving, you can find yourself behind. The second one is, why is this? I'll see a film or I'll see some stats, but why? Why? Football is the thing on the field and the final product, but then all the development to it. Why is it happening? It's so critical to focus on that. And the why is going to be attacked and really brought out to a different level in this comment by Darius. So he's going to talk about Steve Malloy's eval and some of the things I kind of said afterwards. Anyway, this is blindly misrepresenting the facts. I did a podcast on the numbers, but not only did Steve say he isn't reading the field, which is false, but doesn't understand how this QB operates in the system. We think the system's one way, and in some ways it is, but then there is something totally different that I'm going to express to you through Darius. I'll give you an example. In college, we played coverage named sink and in. Loud games, you would signal it with washing your hands. It was one of the best coverages we had, as it wasn't exactly cover two, but rather an option coverage based on receiver routes. It worked very well by 2x2 sets. However, it had a critical weakness. It was mirrored on both sides of the field, like 99% of the coverages at the time, and like the majority of coverages nowadays. So nowadays, and most, not in all defenses, but if they're playing one particular coverage over here, they're playing a different one over there. And this is one reason why Fangio's defense is a little difficult, because it morphs, it changes. It's not all the same. It doesn't mirror, but most do mirror. And so the QB in his mind is thinking, if I see something over here, it should be that over there. But that is not always the case. It should. So Tua would read one side of the field and or key defenders, slot, corner, safety, triangle. I've shown the triangles. And if you do studies on triangles, you can see a lot of very interesting stuff. And it's going to tell you how these guys are doing it, if they're doing it properly when you look at the coverages. I know that a little bit. And know what the coverage is on the other side and throw the ball with anticipation. Steve talked about spots, and it's a pejorative in a sense. I mirrored his comment by saying spots. I usually talk about anticipation, but it's not throwing to spots. It's throwing with anticipation based on what you're thinking the receiver is going to and what you think the coverage is. Throwing the ball with anticipation of the receiver getting to the soft spot in that zone. So Tua is thinking, hey, I see it over here. I see it over there. And I'm going to get to the most important part soon, but he's throwing to an area expecting the receiver to be there, and sometimes it's not like blindly throwing, but it's throwing in front of the receiver, but he's attacking soft spots in the defense that he's anticipating will be mirrored. So it's not even about first or second reads. It's not, I got one read, two read, three, four, because sometimes you can see Tua go like this, and you're like, oh, he's not reading, he's just going to the designated target. But it's not that. This is the most interesting part. It's not even about first or second reads. It's about coverage recognition and getting to pass progressions based on the coverage you are seeing, the routes that should be open based on what the defense is showing you. This is massively simplified as we get into depth of alignment, depth of drops, match or zone without match leverages, and if the slot is playing catch technique. This is a massive reason why I get so irritated with fans with limited knowledge of the game and speaks on falsehoods from their own ignorance. You have done the work to get better at this, meaning me, so that's not meant as a slight towards you, but fans shouldn't take players' misstep in verbiage and use it for a flawed argument, i.e. spot thrower or not reading the field. Ugh. A friend of mine that played at Ohio State said it best. QB isn't only about talent. It is as important as talent to have the infrastructure around the QB. So you've got to look at the infrastructure of the QB in order to help analyze what the player is. But you need talent and you need infrastructure. But what he's saying here is that our offense is got a flavor. Whether you like the flavor, don't like the flavor, it is the flavor. Tua, when he was with Gailey, wasn't in this. It was progression-based. It was read-based on pre-snap alignments at the most minute level. I don't know what the 3 OCs did, but what we got here is Tua gets the ball, and he's reading the defense. He knows the route combination he's got out there, and he knows the break-off and alternates of those route combinations. And so he'll look at one side of the field and expecting the other side of the field to match. And he's seeing, oh, I got it over here. Let me go here, or let me go here. And then he's throwing the ball with anticipation, expecting those routes, those timing routes, and the players to be in those spots. And it's how you can kind of attack. Whether you like it or not, that's not the point. The point, it is what it is. And so if we base it on like, well, he's not going from this read to this read to this read, then you're wrong, because that's not how it's designed. And so I want to get into some little parts that I had, because it really sat with me and I had to think about it and reassess. And then really it fleshed out a lot of things that I thought. So this is not progression based per se. It's coverage read based. I mean, he's got to read the progressions in a sense, but not like what a lot of people, including me, think. But why? And what's the response to this? Reacting to defense speeds up, reacting to the coverages based on progressions, speeds up the offense, and it allows a quicker way of reading. Also, the dual coverage assumption, it can be a strength, because now you're like, I got it over here, I know it's over there, and you can attack quickly and aggressively. But if it's not that, then you can run into problems. And sometimes that might be why when we see Tua throw a pick or throw to a spot, like what? But we also have timing routes. So it's all about timing. And so this quick movement to process through an expectation and throwing to spots, it can lead to big plays as we've seen, but also trouble. So what happens when the defense alters the pattern? What happens when a DC goes, oh, they're reading coverages, and he's going to go to another spot? What if we flip it. We change it. We alter it. Or a guy like he talked about playing Robert in a Houston game. He's sitting on it. Because in a way, it's a little bit more simplistic as a defense from the DC, from the presentation and through the quarterback's processing. But it sometimes can put the situation into the defense if they're savvy enough. So this coverage of read and react helps Tua, but it also helps McDaniel and the O-line, because then you can process quickly, you have assumptions, you can move fast, you got timing, you're throwing to areas, or you're throwing with anticipation, and then the offensive line doesn't have to block so long. And I did a whole thing on the offensive line. We know it's not bueno. So this dual assumption, this reading coverages rather than going through progressions, it's such an interesting story. I've got to dig into it because it's going to help me evaluate in the future, but then it's going to have to force me to really kind of rethink some ways, not totally, but the past. And so we can't think this is Brady going, all right, we're calling this play and it's a route combination. I think they're doing this defense. If they do this, then this is the progression. If they do that, and he's going, duh, 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 duh. It's not that. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it is what it is. All right, from everything O'Darius said and I learned, this is a yin and yang offense. In one hand, it gives, in one hand, it takes away. It gives when you think you have dual coverage and you read over here and you expect it to be over here. It works well when the timing routes are on time and they haven't been knocked off. And Tua can use his elite trait to get into those areas, to get ahead of the receiver and throw it into the soft spots of the defense. But on the other hand, what if it's not dual? What if the receiver's thrown off? What if you don't get a chance to go to the line of scrimmage and call an audible? Like he said, sometimes I know the play's dead and I just got to run with it anyway. And then you add in no run game, which I've talked about. This offense, when everything's right, it can explode. But the NFL does not like to let things be easy and not to like to let things be right. And so that's the inflexible nature of this thing. And it's not to say it's good or bad. I personally prefer a progression-based. I prefer an audible system. But it is what it is. And so when you see Tua play, you've got to know this. And it flipped my concept of what it is and what's going on. And it taught me so much. And that's why I am so grateful for O'Darius taking the time and giving the information and allowing me to grow and learn. I'm putting my tuchus in the video section to learn a lot more about coverages and defenses. And I'm going to go back to the tape and I'm going to have to rethink a ton of things. Again, this is not about Tua being great or Tua being bad, but he has a vehicle. We have to judge him and the vehicle at once. So I really enjoyed this one. It was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow. I don't like to be wrong, but I prefer to be wrong and get corrected so I'm not wrong in the future. So again, thank you, O'Darius. I learned a ton. I got more from the stuff that you gave me. I got to dig through. So guys, before I cut out, I'm going to let his tape run after I do my thing. Check it out. He's got special teams play, a nice PBU and a pick. This guy can play. You got to at least stop and say, hey, maybe I don't got all the answers. So Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis out. Building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with AceBread.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.